All right, welcome back, my friends, to All Cars, where we talk about all cars all the time. And today I'm really excited to be doing this. My list of the top 6, not 5, 6 mid-size sedans for 2021. And as we know, this market has been shrinking a little bit, and a couple of, I think, really good ones have been canceled and are fading away. Looking at you, Ford Fusion and the Mazda 6. So this has become a little bit more competitive recently, but I'm going to go through and give my opinion on how these things would rank 6 to number 1. All right, so if you haven't been here, please hit the subscribe button. Please like this video. It really helps me with the YouTube algorithm. But before we jump in, I've got just a couple of things to say. The first is, when I rank these vehicles, it's based on 2 questions. Number 1, would I recommend it to somebody else? Would I feel confident in recommending this to somebody else, thinking that they're going to be happy and not come blame me for something later on? And number 2 is, would I be proud if it was sitting in my driveway? Would I be proud to arrive in this vehicle and other people would look and say they made a smart decision with that car? That being said, I don't have all 6 of them out here. I'm not going to test drive them back to back and shoot videos of it and give you engine choices and optional engine horsepower, braking distance, all of this other stuff. I'm going to mention price in 2 of them, I think, here. But mostly, this market is so competitive. You can almost throw a dart and pick one and probably be happy with it. It's that competitive in most ways. Splitting the difference in 1 or 2 miles per gallon, for example, really doesn't get you anywhere. A lot of these cars are going to be personal preference, what you like and what appeals to you and what it says about you. I believe your car speaks to what you're trying to say to the rest of the world in a lot of places and where your priorities are. So I'd like to know at the end, what are your thoughts? Does your order differ? Would you rank one number 1 that I'm not including? Or did I miss one that you would like to see? When I look up lists of mid-sized cars, it includes a lot of different things. I've seen the Prius listed as a mid-sized car. And I've seen some of the Dodges ranked as mid-sized cars. You're not going to see those on here. I just tried to hit 6 that kind of fit my criteria. So let's jump into it. Now, because I don't remember everything, I have a cheat sheet. Number 6 is the Subaru Legacy. Now, I have a really high opinion of this vehicle, and of course, Subaru has fantastic owner loyalty. I think it's a good car, and certainly Subaru has toned down their styling. So it's not, they don't make cars quite as weird as they used to, but they're still not, directly going after, say, the Camrys and the Accords. They're still a little bit quirky. So outside, they look pretty good. Inside, I think they've taken leaps ahead, specifically aiming for a more Volvo-esque interior with the way they're orienting their infotainment. They're not going for the narrow, long, they're going for the big, vertical installation, and this car really looks fantastic. For me, not a big fan of the engine. It manages to make a lot of noise and still not be very fast. That all-wheel drive system does hurt the miles per gallon. You might need it depending on where you live and what conditions. It might be perfect for you, but overall it ends up being a kind of okay car that I probably would be very happy with for 10 or 15 years. I just think there's better options out there. And specifically about price, Subaru does not have the expansive dealership network of some other car makers, of course, and in my market, I did a look here right before I got on. My local dealership has 3 on the lot, and 2 of them are well over $30,000. They have one 2020 model, which is about $26,000 and some change. That makes it pretty competitive. But other than that, you've got really, really limited selections, and it looks like if you want white, that's great because that's all they've got. Would I recommend it to somebody? Absolutely. Depending on what they're looking for, I think it's a great car for some people. That all-wheel drive, that reliability, and if they want to be a little bit quirky, I would absolutely recommend it. Would I be proud to drive one? I don't really see one sitting in my driveway. It doesn't quite say what I want it to say. it says more, I teach philosophy at the local college more than anything else to me. If it's perfect for you, great, but right here it takes number 6 on my list. Number 5, Chevy Malibu. Now, this one might be a little bit of a surprise for you if you've been to my channel a lot. You know I'm not a huge fan of GM, but the Malibu is a really good car overall. When it was released, it tested very competitively with some of the best out there, including the Camry and the Accord. It's very comfortable inside. The issues around it are kind of nebulous. It manages to look narrow and long. The rear styling, the way they did the trunk, they managed to make it look really small, although the trunk's not very small. It managed to look small. Overall, the proportions don't quite work for me. I want something a little squarer, a little chunkier. The interior materials are also kind of a mishmash, honestly. Some cheap plastics and some other feeling stuff, and the style doesn't quite work for me. I think the ergonomics are fine. Don't get me wrong. I think it works fine. Just doesn't quite resonate with me, like I'm not the market that they're aiming for. That leads me to reliability. That's tough to answer. Of course, everybody has their own opinion. For every person who comments on my channel that they've had a Chevy that lasted for 250,000 miles, there's another person that said they had 20 repairs in the first 50,000. The Malibu ranks 4 out of 5 over here on Repair Pal, and it ranks about 9th. So it's not the best, it's not the worst. It manages to hit right at the average in almost every metric. If you want a American car, mid-sized, front-wheel drive, 4-cylinder sedan, reasonably priced, the Malibu is your choice. Nobody else really has something out there to compete with it. So would I recommend it to somebody else? A lot of times, yes. If you're really looking for American, this is your one choice. If you're looking for basic transportation, especially if you can get a really good deal on a used one, it's an absolute yes, with the caveat that, hopefully you're not going to have a problem with it. Do I see it in my driveway? Question number 2. Not really. The styling doesn't quite work for me, although when I've driven them, when I've sat in them, when I've looked at them, they are a compelling package, but just overall doesn't work for me, and because of that, I rank it number 5 on this list. Number 4, the Nissanltima. Now, if you have been to my channel, you know I'm a pretty big fan of Nissans, and the first car I ever kept for 10 years was a cheap Nissan. One thing I need to say here is that I believe automakers have to have an archetype, right? A person of what they're designing for. How far away is the wheel? How far away are the HVAC controls, the radio controls? How's everything proportioned around you? And Nissan apparently builds their cars for me. I have not sat in a Nissan where I am not immensely comfortable. Whether it's the armrest being right there on my elbow, whether it's that HVAC or infotainment being just right there, the perfect distance away, where the armrest is on the other side, the seating position. Their seats are fabulous, these NASA-inspired seats. It works for me inside, and I think that while some of the materials do come across a little cheap, the Altima really, really works inside. Outside, I think it's really well styled as well. I think the recent redesign really made an attractive car, and they've got that optional trick variable compression engine, and if I remember, the Altima also has an all-wheel drive option as well. So it's a really compelling piece. Would I recommend it to others? Pretty much absolutely. With the caveat, there's always one, are you getting Nissan Japanese reliability, or are you getting Renault-inspired reliability? That's my hesitation on it. The Altima doesn't come across as a screaming deal to me. It's really, really good, and I think this is an example of how competitive it can be in this marketplace, because you can take my top 4 and switch the order and probably still be extremely happy with the car you pick. I love the Altima, but I don't think it's quite as good as the others, and that's why it gets number 4 on my list. Number 3, the Hyundai Sonata. This one's kind of a surprise for me too, that it ranks above the Altima, but Here's the deal. I don't love the exterior styling. I think they actually took a step back with it. It's got that sloped nose I really don't like. The interior is good looking and a great jump forward, I believe, in terms of quality. The ride's good. Everything about it is really good. Would I recommend it to somebody? With the increases Hyundai has had in their reliability and the interior materials, yes, I would. Would I be proud of it in my driveway? Not so much. I really dislike the styling. But in terms of buying a mid-sized car that does everything you want, with the safety equipment you want, with the best warranty in the business for a little bit of extra confidence, that's why it comes up to number 3 for me. For example, the Altima's, the warranty's not as strong, so I think the Sonata is just a little bit better. And while I don't focus on price here, because I do think they're so close to each other, you can get a Sonata for like $23,000 just spot checking a dealership this morning. That's really strong and can easily be a couple of $1,000s less expensive than some of the other choices. It's a powerful buying proposition to get a good car with a good warranty. You decide on whether you like the styling or not. For me, it just doesn't quite work. I think it's a step backwards, but it's a good car and it does squeak in at number 3 for me. Number 2, a surprise for me for ranking it this high, but it's because of the questions I'm asking, and that's the Toyota Camry. Again, if you've been here before, I'm not a fan of Toyotas. And when I talked about the Nissan and said that they have, manufacturers have an archetype of what fits people, what everything is laid out to be, Toyota is not built for me. Every Toyota I've driven, with the exception of some Lexi, they're not built for me. Everything feels off. I don't know what it is. Now, some of it is styling. They've kind of toned that down recently in their stretch to not be vanilla. They went ugly, weird angles and everything else. They've toned that down a little bit, of course. The Camry just doesn't quite work for me. It feels big but tight, and things are an odd distance to me. I don't fit in them. And a lot of times their seats are narrow and they're short front to back for me. And it doesn't matter whether it's the Camry, the Corolla, the Sienna. Every Toyota I've ever sat in has always felt just a little off to me. Whereas the Altima seems to fit perfectly, the Camry, it just feels off. However, would I recommend the Camry to somebody else? Absolutely. Anything short of somebody who wants to go racing or wants a BMW, the Camry's an excellent choice. It rides well, it handles well, it accelerates just fine, it's smooth, it's reliable as the day is long, it has a good sized trunk. Everything about it is just good. And you can recommend the Toyota really without hesitation that somebody is going to have years or decades of good service out of it with competitive technology and safety equipment and infotainment. For me, styling still doesn't quite work. I don't like it. I don't want one in my driveway. I absolutely respect Toyota and their ability to build really good, reliable cars, but they don't do it for me. And that's why number 1 for me is the Honda Accord. I've liked almost every generation except for one of the Honda Accord, and the new one is an absolute home run. I mean, I have to be really nitpicky to find things about it I don't like. The front styling doesn't quite work for me. I don't know, this big chrome nose on it, I don't know, it just doesn't work for me, but the rest of the styling is gorgeous in my opinion. The interior feels smaller than the previous generation and certainly smaller than my 2014. They made it a little bit more cockpit-like, which I don't love. Actually, my right knee actually wants to bump into the center part, but the seats are comfortable. It's well priced. It's got good power. It's got Honda reliability. Back seat's fine. Trunk is fine. It's gorgeous. And I'll never forget when it came out, I believe it was Car and Driver. Actually, I think it might have been in their 10 best list, said that there's a lot of BMW 3 Series owners who should be driving Honda Accords because they're that satisfying to drive, but for thousands or tens of thousands of dollars less money and much better gas mileage and a bigger interior. I do believe the Honda Accord is, short of moving up to the premium or luxury levels, I think the Honda Accord is just about perfect. Is it noisier than the Camry? Subjectively, maybe so. You know, you're splitting hairs, honestly. I just believe in the Honda Accord. I believe it's the pinnacle. I believe I could buy one and drive it for 15 to 20 years, and it's pretty fairly priced. I think you can get a better deal on a Camry. I do feel that Toyota is discounting their cars more to keep their market share up, whereas you're not going to get that screaming deal on an Accord, but it still ends up being fairly priced against the other mid-size sedans. So that's my 2 cents on it, guys. Honda Accord comes in number 1, but again, those top 3 to 4, you could honestly switch them based on your personal preferences. It would not, if I filmed this on a different day and on a different week, and if I was in a bad mood, you know what? I'd probably put the Camry 4th, maybe the Sonata 3rd. I could put the Honda 2nd and the Altima number 1 because I like it that much. That's how close those top 4 are for me. But I don't believe in ties. Honda Accord's almost the perfect vehicle in my opinion. It keeps coming up at the top of my list for my next vehicles, except as you know, I keep thinking about a compact sport utility. So let me know your thoughts below. You love it? You hate it? What would you put on your list? Let me know below. Thanks, guys.